Testing the streams. I was impressed. I did the promo earlier today without testing anything, and it worked. Now I am testing YouTube, and that seems to be working. Because for the big show, I don't trust it. Yeah, YouTube is working. Not sure about Facebook yet. Yep, Facebook is working. And these days, got one more to check. Twitter. And Twitter is working. Yay. So, hey, there I am. This could be a solo show. It probably is going to be a solo show. Got a word back from Jen and from Brendan that, well, here's the deal. I gave them the day off. I gave them the day off. They don't work for me. They volunteered to do the podcast. In theory, Cindy and I were going to be going up to some friends who have a house outside of Boone to house sit. Well, they went down to the beach and take care of their puppy, watch their house, enjoy getting away a little bit. Got a very nice place. But they had they had their own little close encounter with the COVIDs. They were out to lunch early this week with another couple, neighbors. They were outdoors, not wearing masks when they were eating. And then that couple reported that over the weekend they had been with their kids, and then the kids during the week came down with sniffles. That's the way it was described to me. Going to get COVID tests, but didn't have resolution. So they were a couple of steps away from a potential COVID experience or connection. But they felt that it would be a little bit too dangerous to head out and see their family down on the coast and have us come and be potentially exposed. So we might do that later this week after things have resolved, unless things resolve as if the COVID actually did exist among these folks. So we will see. Anyway, I'm here. So I get to do a show. But I had told Jen and Brendan and Sarah that I wasn't going to be here, and this came up fairly last minute, and I got notes back from them. They had already scattered to the four winds. They had planned or are doing other things. But there is a slight possibility. I got the Zoom turned on. There. I got the Zoom turned on. And there's a slight possibility that one of them may join us for later part of the show. We will see. And I see that the timer has run itself out, so let's do this. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show.
Let's cut the crap, kid. I want to know what the big talk's all about.
I don't think we should talk about this.
Then we talk all night.
Let's give them something to talk about. Another night of hearing my
Stop me if you've heard this one.
Talk is cheap, yo.
With a little less talk and a lot more action.
I don't wanna
Talk to me.
knock it off and put the yickety yak, the yakety yick.
Let's tell it like it is and how it could be. How it was and of course how it should be.
Keep that motor mouth moving morning, noon, and night. And if you keep on talking, baby, you know you're bound just to drive me away.
No, I don't intend to do that long piece of music introduction on a regular basis. I just thought, since it's just going to be me, why not? I'm Gary Pierce. Oh, look. For those of you watching the video, Triangularian with my gang sign type air quotes. Yes, so I have learned air quotes are like this. That's not air quotes. But I was able to come up with a emoji that does sort of the air quotes. Okay, so I am Gary Pierce, and here's the show. Episode 108. Chat room. It's going to be a monologue room. Best I can tell. Just me. August 23rd, 2020. Oh, and it's saying Sunday at 4. I keep forgetting that. That's part of this title. It's something that I can turn off. But I have to actually turn it off. And keep forgetting to do that. I turned off the clock instead. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Fade away. All right. And for those of you in the audio audience, you don't know what I'm talking about. Episode 108, Big Effing Podcast. You may have been shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that the Democrats used not the real F word, but a substitute for the F word, not once, but twice during their virtual convention. Talk about that a little bit more later on, I think. But I will mention, I will note that language can get you in trouble. You may have also noticed that over the past week, Cincinnati Reds baseball announcer, his name is Tom Brenneman, he missed a cue coming back from a break during their pregame show, and he got caught in the middle of what sounded like a comment that he had been making about some unknown city, and the words he said was, "One of the fag capitals of the world." Yeah, I said the word fag. Mostly that was bleeped out on any of the bigger broadcasts, but you can find it. In fact, I think I've got a little YouTube of it here.
Fag capitals of the world.
Yeah.
Reds Live, the pregame show presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing.
Sure, I'll play that again.
The fag capitals of the world.
Because I think you should hear the way he says it with disdain in his voice.
The fag capitals of the world.
Okay, that's enough of that. Yeah, I mean, he says it with a moderate amount, maybe a lot of disdain in his voice about it. More than a hint. He then went on to apologize for saying it, saying he was deeply ashamed of what he said. But that doesn't sound like he was saying it with any kind of deep shame. It doesn't sound like he was saying it sarcastically. It sounds like he meant it. Like that was his attitude about whatever this town was and about whatever gay people are. That's what it sounded like. A little out of context because he didn't hear whatever came ahead of it. And in all the apologies, the many, many apologies that have come up, he didn't explain it further. He just said, that's not me. It's not the way I am. but it is what it is. He did get fired. He has had a 33-year career. So what you say can get you in trouble. But if you're the Democrats, you can say effing, apparently without getting in very much trouble. Here on the Triangle Talk Show, we can use the real words. We can say fag and we can say fuck. We don't often do that unless there's a real good reason to, but we can. Oh, yes, the Triangle Talk Show is a YouTube show. It is a Twitter and Periscope and Facebook Live video program, and it's a podcast for the Triangle area of North Carolina. And we know that although we are a video show, we identify as a podcast. For those of you in the video audience, I can show you this giant title, Triangle Talk Show, and at the bottom it says podcast. What other proof do I need that we are, no, like this, the air quotes, scare quotes, a podcast. We talk about anything we want to, especially when I'm here by myself. Anything I want to. We more or less aim at things of interest to triangularians. Time to bring up my title again. And note down here at the bottom, I'm a triangularian. I've invented that word. I'm trying to make it go. You can help. To use it. How do you help you use it? Especially where other people can hear you and be aware of it. Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'm a proud triangularian. What else could we call ourselves? Triangulites? I mean, as far as we can tell, there's no other word. No word that describes people who live and identify themselves as being from the Triangle area of North Carolina. Triangularians. I mean, it's a little awkward. 6 syllables. Triangularian. Yeah, 6 syllables. That's a little long, but I mean, half of it is triangle. That's, 3. I grew up in the Chicago area, and I grew up in the suburbs. I moved it downtown into the city when I was an adult, but I grew up in the suburbs. And if you're from Chicago, you call yourself a Chicagoan, which, just adds 1 syllable. That's not too bad. Those of us who are in the suburbs, depends on how far away we were talking to someone. If they were a long ways away and they didn't really distinguish the city versus the suburbs, we might not say we were, from Chicago, Chicagoans. But I don't think we had a word for ourselves as suburbanites, Chicago suburbanites specifically. After I left, somebody started using a different word to describe being in the Chicago area. Not an adjective for Chicagoans, but they started calling the metropolitan area Chicagoland. We didn't use the term Chicagoland when I lived there, but now that's all I hear. From your greater Chicagoland Toyota dealer. So, don't know why I thought I would mention that, although, triangularians. Trying to make that a thing. Brendan won't say it. A little bit with the quotes. Jen will, but only with irony dripping from her voice. We are generally local. Sometimes we talk about stuff that is a bit broader. We'll do both of that today. We are unfair. I can say this when I'm here by myself. It's harder when Sarah is here. We're unfair and unbalanced on the left-leaning side of politics, except for Sarah Wagner, our token libertarian, because Brendan and Jen are left-leaning. I don't think they call themselves Democrats, but they will call themselves left-leaning, almost to the point of falling over. And Sarah is our token libertarian, and I'm left-leaning, but not. It's kind of hard to tell how far left-leaning I am. I vary. Sort of depends on the issue, I guess. Sarah Wagner is our token libertarian, the Schrodinger's cat of politics, providing, this is my attempt to dig myself out of any kind of a hole that I might have dug myself in. She provides poise, if not balance. And all of that applies when we get political, which we often do. Sometimes we don't. The website is triangletalkshow.com. Facebook group is Triangle Talk Show. The YouTube channel is Triangle Talk Show. We now have a new YouTube challenge. The last challenge was to get 100 subscribers to get our custom URL. We now need 1,000 subscribers so that we can do mobile live streaming. So that I can go to someplace important and hold up my phone and start rolling the video onto Facebook, onto YouTube. I can do that on Facebook, on our Facebook group, but need 1,000 subscribers to be able to do it on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. As usual, I don't promise anything. Not going to do the show you want me to do just because you have signed up to subscribe on Facebook. And you can stop. You don't have to watch anymore once you've subscribed. You don't have, I mean, it'd be nice, but you don't have to. Jen caught that part. She repeated it last week. She pays attention. I'm always impressed if anybody's paying attention to what I say. 1,000 subscribers for mobile live streaming on the YouTube. Our Twitter is @TalkTriangle. Apparently so is our Periscope. We are on something called Periscope. I thought Periscope disappeared a long time ago. Periscope emerged kind of early on as a place where you could do live streaming video from your phone. And Twitter bought them. I guess Twitter bought them. And I thought that they just kind of submerged it. I didn't know what they did with it, but now apparently it's still got its own identity. Still Periscope. The place where you go to do the live streaming video is still called Periscope. It's just that they have a Twitter connection, and I click a button that says send out a tweet when you start your Periscope, which I can do from my Major League studio here. No, this camera. From the Major League studio here in the bonus room above the garage, foot of Mount Bolzoni, I can send the stream to Periscope, and they pick it up and they send out a tweet, and the tweet doesn't just say, oh, Gary's on Periscope. It shows the video. Sure, why not? I can show you. I can show you that is the case. There we are on Twitter. That's our tweet with the live thing going on Periscope. Okay, so are we done with the boilerplate? No, not quite. Podcast-wise, we are every place you want to be. Every podcast app, almost. I'm sure there's one or two that we're not on. We're on Apple Music. Still called iTunes on Windows, but why would anybody use it on Windows? TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever that is. Google Podcasts. Like us, rate us, and review us. I'm only saying that because I hear everybody else say that. Everybody. On a podcast that I'll listen to lots of other podcasts, and not all of them, but many of them, somewhere up at the top, will say, like us, review us, rate us on iTunes. That will not do this show any good. We're never going to be in the Hot 100 or whatever. As Jen said last week, tell your friends. If you find us on Facebook, share the feed. Do something that lets people know that we're here, especially around the triangle. And then they will think worse of you for having pointed them to us. Unless they love this stuff. I don't know. Maybe they do. I'm clearly in love with the sound of my own voice. Next Sunday, we're going to do a show on voting research, because the word is vote early. Of course, you're hearing that from everybody. Vote early, vote by mail, vote in person, do it as early as you can, because we want to help prevent shenanigans, especially with the post office. But who do you vote for? I mean, most of us have our minds made up on offices like president and senator and governor, maybe U.S. Congress, but there's been enough fiddling around with the districts after court decisions following gerrymandering, enough fiddling around that many of us are in new districts. I am going to be in a new district. I've been in District 4 for most of the time I've lived in North Carolina. There was a brief couple of years when I was in some other district, then back and forth, and starting next year, and for voting purposes this year, District 2. Sort of not a brand new district, but I mean, the incumbent, George Holding, is not running because the District 2 lines have been drawn so that he's got no way of winning. So there's candidates that have not held office, congressional office before in District 2. Do I even remember the name of the winner of the Democratic primary for Congress for District 2? I do not. See? We need research. But it's down ballot stuff that I'm mostly concerned about in terms of research. And making informed choices for the down ballot races requires research. Where do you do it? Well, I spammed Reddit and some Facebook groups asking, where do you do your research and how early will they be ready? Because some of the places that I know of, News and Observer, Indie Week, League of Women Voters, there's a lot more. Are they going to have their research? Some of them make endorsements. Are they going to be out early? I did read something in the News and Observer that said that they were going to be early, but I don't remember exactly when they said they would be ready. Well, the earliest of early voting is going to be the mail-in stuff. It's technically absentee. You can request your absentee ballot now. It won't be sent out right away. It will be sent out on September 4th, according to the article that I read about that. So September 4th, they would be mailed out, which means you might get it by Christmas, the way the post office is being screwed up these days. I kid, but not that much. They'll be mailed out September 4th, and in theory, you'll get it the 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. In-person early voting doesn't happen until October 15th. That's when that starts. So you'll have your ability to mail in a ballot for a month before in-person early voting starts. My personal plan A, is to get the ballot, the mail-in ballot, and have it all ready to send, but to actually do my voting in person unless the in-person voting scares me because people won't socially distance. This is going to be a great opportunity for Republicans to try to suppress the vote by showing up in as large a numbers as they can at polling places, not wearing masks. And so far, the word that I've gotten is that polling places they cannot require you to wear a mask. And if there's going to be any kind of a line, just kind of crowd the lines and breathe. Pardon me, I might have a little COVIDs here. You might want to stand back and scare people like me away. Maybe there's something that screwed up my nose. Maybe there's something that the officials can do about something like that. Inside the polling places, yeah, they can insist on some decorum, but outside, if there's a line, I'm not handing an idea to Republicans that they have never heard of before. I'm sure they're thinking about that. Maybe they're making plans for it. In any case, my plan is to vote early at one, and you can vote anywhere in your county, any of the early voting locations in your county, not just the one closest to you. Your precinct won't be open until Election Day, November 3rd, but the early voting locations will all start opening up on October 15th, and you can go to any of them. So if one scares you, you could try another one. Maybe the legions of Democrats will get on their Facebooks and their Twitters and tell you which ones are not very busy and where they are observing social distancing and behaving themselves. Of course, the Republicans will see that and they'll all rush over. I'm really a scaremonger, aren't I, on the show? Without any co-hosts to restrain me, it can be bad. You can vote in less than 3 weeks from now. So I'm going to do the show next week on doing that down ballot research. So I went over and I spammed Reddit and a couple of Facebook groups to say, where do you do your research? I got a lot of response from Reddit and a little bit from some Facebook groups. I've also invited in that spam anybody to come on the show. Well, I didn't invite anybody to come on the show. I said, if you think you'd like to come on the show, give me a direct message on the Reddit, send email, talk@triangletalkshow.com, and tell me that you'd like to come on there. Nobody has taken me up on that so far. And anybody out there in this audience, same offer applies. You do need Zoom, audio, and video to be on the show. So we'll find out, get some ideas about where to do research and learn about the candidates and maybe get some endorsements and maybe see how early some of those will be out. Because I don't think they're going to be out there on September 5th. You might be able to get them before October 15th. We will see. So the universities are falling one by one. Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, NC State, Notre Dame, a bunch of others around the country. Was anybody surprised? Well, of course not. Do we blame the administrations or do we blame the students? I'm going to say both. The administrations for not realizing that you can't bring a bunch of college students, late teens, bring them together into one place and not expect a significant number of them to party on. Party on, Garth. Which reminds me, this whole show basically is just Wayne's World. We don't expect them to be more responsible than that. The administrations should have realized that that's going to be the case. Of course, they've got a lot of money involved in getting people to come to the school. So there'll be some refunds, I'm sure, some. But you bring kids in from around the state, around the country, some around the world, bring them in, and a week later say, never mind. Well, I mean, it's your fault, kids. You did it. You know, a few of you brought the COVID from home not knowing that you had it, but then you partied and gave it to a lot of your friends. So I blame you all. Just have to make sure I don't get it. Going to do the house sitting if we do that later on this week. Just have to make sure. Did you watch the Democratic National Convention? The Republicans called it a long, badly produced infomercial. Well, of course it was an infomercial. Of course it was. And it was long. It wasn't badly produced. Did a pretty good job. There were a few miscues. You could hear, the directors in the background. Here, you're on. Go, start talking. You can hear that on a few times. I watched bits and pieces of it, bits and chunks, some big chunks. I had YouTube TV watch it for me, and then I went back later that night or the next day. I got the flavor of the ordinary folks that they had on there. I didn't watch all of them. I watched most of the major speeches. Not all of that either, because, it was really the same old blah, blah, blah. Gonna bring everybody together. We're gonna make America great again. That phrase is enshrined. Can't use that anymore. I watched some of it. I wanted to get the flavor of it. I wanted to watch Joe Biden and see how well he held up, because, I am one of those people that is of the opinion that he is on the decline side of his peak sharpness for him. I guess there's a Republican commercial out there. I haven't seen it, and I should have dug it up. Trump commercial that is comparing Biden of even 5 years ago, 10 years ago with Biden today. There's no question. I did a show a while ago that did the same thing with Robert Mueller, looking at his congressional testimony that he did earlier this year, and other times he's appeared in public, not a major public figure in the past. And it was pretty shocking, the apparent decline of Robert Mueller when he finally ended up at the congressional hearings. I think unless he was just having a bad day, and as I mentioned, if he was just having a bad day, it was a really bad day to have a bad day. Because he did not seem to be in full control of his faculties. Definitely not as sharp as he had been. So that, I think, is the case with Joe Biden. Am I particularly worried about it with Joe Biden? No. Is it causing me to have any kind of second thoughts about not voting for him because he's going to be the candidate along with Kamala Harris? No problem. No problem voting for him. Certainly not going to vote for Trump instead, because I think, he's a sharper tack than Biden. That is not the issue. I'm not sure what will happen with Joe Biden. I'm not sure what his administration would be like down the road. Will he make it all 4 years? Will he have to be figuratively, maybe practically literally propped up by the people around him? I'm not worried about that, because that happens. He'll be being propped up by people who are going to do generally what I would like to see the administration do. And generally is carrying a lot of weight there. Fodder for another program. So I watched him more carefully, but I don't think I watched his whole speech. He acquitted himself fine. He did not have tremendous energy. Got himself a little bit angrier toward the end. Watched, Michelle Obama was awesome. Barack Obama was pretty good. Got himself riled up at one point. But they're just making fairly generic political speeches, and that stuff. If that stuff charges you up, fine. That's great. It does not charge me up. I am going to go vote. Don't worry. Going to go vote. I do wish one thing had happened that I saw that didn't happen, because I was watching. At one point, at a couple of points actually, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their respective spouses were on stage together, and sometimes they were in masks, and one time they were not. There was one very brief sort of group hug. There was one quick drive-by handshake, but for the most part, they stayed apart, and they were wearing masks. And I wish they had made a deal about that. I wish they had said something about that, because, these people, they have probably been COVID tested up the wazoo. And I know you don't get a COVID test. You get a COVID test up the nose, not up the wazoo. I wish they had made a thing about that. I wish they had said something like, well, we know this looks awkward, and, we are modeling social distancing and mask wearing because it is what people in general have to do if we're going to have any semblance of beating COVID-19 until there's a vaccine. If we're going to keep it down, and apparently we're not doing a very good job of keeping it down in much of the country. North Carolina is kind of I guess New York is doing fairly well. Northeast they're doing fairly well. Other places, pretty poorly. And there's sort of a red-blue label that you can put on some of those places, but not entirely. I don't know about the kids, going to college. They're not all young Republicans. Probably plenty of young kids that have left-leaning or liberal tendencies in their politics, and they're still going to the parties. And they're not distancing and not wearing the mask. Because it doesn't seem real until it hits you. You can't hear it. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't feel it. You can't touch it. Till it happens to somebody near you. Doesn't bother me that, I wish that they had, Biden and Harris had said, we know this is awkward. We're doing this because this is what you guys should do. We've been tested. We're, a high confidence level that we do not have COVID-19 and are not contagious. But you don't know. And this is the kind of behavior that we all need to model to beat this. So that's what we're doing up here on stage. That's what we're doing with the whole convention. But nobody said that. Nobody. My nose is itching like crazy. Nobody said that. Is a nose itching like crazy? Is that a sign? I don't know. It did not bother me that some Republicans, the never-Trumper types, appeared. The DNC probably showed actually some courage in using them, bringing them into speaking positions of some prominence on during the convention. I don't think that those Republicans are going to be particularly embracing the Democratic agenda in a Biden administration. But, it's the Trump thing that is making them say, we got to do something. We got to get Trump out of here. We'll come speak at the Democratic National Convention with the message of vote for Joe Biden because he's not Trump. And then we'll work things out after this. I do kind of wonder what the Republican Party is going to be like. I'm going to make the assumption that Biden and Harris win, and what the Republican Party is going to look like. I've heard pundits say that they will flush Trump, like the turd that he is, the minute he is defeated, and whines that the election was rigged and all that stuff. I have heard pundits say the Republican Party is going to do that. I don't have that much confidence that that's what's going to happen. We will see. Will the Republican Party go back to being the big tent-ish party that they had been, before the Tea Party came in? Trump is a after effect, a follow-on from the Tea Party. So, will all of that sort of disappear or not? Well, it'll be interesting to see. We'll find out. Oh yeah, what I found. It takes a while for me to read what I want to say about this stuff here as I'm looking at my rundown. A lot was made by many of the folks speaking in the convention, Biden and others. We're going to bring people back together. We're going to bring America back together. Please. We're not. We might have a little bit more bipartisan legislation. There's bipartisan legislation keeps happening on things that don't make the news. Otherwise, nothing would ever get passed. There is bipartisan stuff, and every once in a while, something big gets bipartisan support. But we are split pretty badly right now, and one kumbaya administration is not going to bring America back together again. Biden can try to make an appeal to the Trump faithful all he wants. He's not going to get them, and I'm not sure what's going to happen to them afterwards, but they're not going to become kumbaya Democrats. It's not going to happen. But yet the Democrats have to keep saying, we're going to bring America together again. But we're not. We're still going to be a very divided country. And we should be aware of that as we move forward. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that means that we're going to do differently. But if Biden and Harris win, even by a pretty substantial margin, even of what they're calling landslides these days, which is anything in the high 50s and above, if they think that they've got a mandate from the entire American people for their agenda, well, that they don't. They did not bring America together to do that. Should be aware of that. Doesn't mean we're not going to try to pass all the legislation that we want to get passed. We just understand that it's going to leave a lot of people very angry and upset, and things will swing. After a presidential election, let's say that the Biden and Harris are elected, and cross our fingers that we keep the House and take the Senate as Democrats. The midterm elections could easily reverse one of those two chambers, if not both, because that's the way things keep happening. It would be a surprise if that didn't happen. Okay, what about the big effing deal reference? That's one of the things that I caught live, and I went, oh. Somebody grew a sack there. Somebody grew a little bit of balls.
I look around my district in North Texas, and I see the people who built this country, the educators, like the single mom who raised me, the men and women on the front lines of our healthcare system.
So
you built
I
this
think
country.
that
Small business owners,
that it happens toward the end here. So this is a minute and a half.
Charleston, South Carolina.
Of tribal nations.
Line the streets of Philadelphia and bring our communities to life. You built this country.
The nurses in Memphis who came out of retirement to treat patients during this pandemic. You built this country.
And you know what? You deserve more than the constant chaos that Donald Trump delivers.
You deserve health care you can afford, a job that pays you fairly. You deserve child care and paid sick leave while you work. And when you pay into Social Security and Medicare, you deserve to know it will be there when you retire.
And that's why we ran.
And thanks to the voters across the country in both red states and blue states,
we won. A new generation of leaders is rising up.
And with Joe Biden in the White House, there's no limit to what we can do.
In Nevada, we're making drug prices more transparent, so people with chronic illnesses won't go broke while drug companies
a lot of the big effing deal was healthcare related.
Expand the Affordable Care Act. He'll make sure millions of people keep their coverage and no one can be denied for a pre-existing condition. He'll bring down the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs.
So I was thinking, this is just the usual blah, blah, blah until
allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices.
That's a big effing deal.
That's a big effing deal.
Yeah, that surprised me a little bit. And has there been blowback? I haven't even heard Republican blowback from it. And then Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin echoed that maybe a day or two later.
When I was 9 years old, I got sick, really sick. I was hospitalized, but since my grandparents were the ones raising me and our family's health plan didn't cover grandkids, they were forced to pay out of pocket for my 3-month hospital stay. I got better, but the insurance companies didn't. They refused to cover me at any cost because I was marked child with a pre-existing condition. We all have stories like this. Stories about a time when the system was rigged against us, when we were counted out, left out, pushed out. Just think of what we've heard these past 4 days. Healthcare professionals who don't have the protective gear they need. Young people whose asthma will get worse as our air quality does. Workers who are afraid of losing their jobs. Each story begs this simple, fundamental question, a question that gets to the heart of the choice in this election. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country where millionaires get to dodge taxes, or one where working families get a break? Do we want to be a country where medical bills bury people in debt, or one where health care is affordable for all, or where tens of thousands of people die from a virus, or where the American dream lives? I think we know the answer to that fundamental question, because most of us want the same things. Good schools in our neighborhoods, racial justice, the freedom to love who we want, dignity in our work, and an economy where small businesses and working families thrive. And over the past months, we've added another to that list, a nation free from COVID. That's why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the only answer in this election. Trust me, they are. You see, there's another part of my story, the part where I ran for office, the part where I served in Congress, the part where I worked with Joe Biden and Barack Obama to make sure kids and grandkids, if they're dependents, can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26. We got that done. And yes, it was a big effing deal. That's the America I know. That's the America I love. And that's the America we will be with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House.
And yes, it is a big effing deal. I don't want to make much more of that than it is, because if there's been a reaction to it, with people going, oh, my heart, I haven't heard about it. I have not, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I can say it's a big fucking deal. Doesn't bother me. Let's see. I watched most of the convention on MSNBC. I had YouTube TV record that for me, and didn't watch very much of it live. They played the convention wall to wall. They did an hour ahead of it, from 7 to 8, and then at 8 o'clock they went to the full convention, and they just stayed with it. They didn't interrupt for anything until it was over at 11:15, 11:20, and then they did another couple of hours of commentary afterwards. PBS dropped in for commentary now and then, especially when the unknowns were there and the music and other stuff was happening. They went straight to the convention for the more well-known and the more important pieces of the convention. I didn't watch very much Fox News, but I did notice that they were not using their opinion hosts, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, to anchor the coverage. I think I saw Brett Baer anchoring the coverage, and they did not cover wall to wall. Hannity did his regular show, and he had the convention running in a window on the side of the screen for some of the time, a lot of the time. MSNBC did use their opinion hosts, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, Nicole Wallace, Brian Williams. They were the ones doing the talking for the hour before and for most of the hour afterwards, and they brought in other folks, other anchors, other guests. I am curious to see, with the Republican National Convention coming up this week, if MSNBC will give them wall-to-wall uninterrupted coverage. I'm guessing they will not. I never watched any of CNN to see what they were doing. I don't know if they give it wall-to-wall or not. I'm also curious whether Fox News will give them wall-to-wall coverage. And I don't have a guess on the Fox News. Let's see. My conclusion. In conclusion, some things were better virtual than a conventional convention. I was going to say things moved along faster. Things were not interrupted by applause. Things just generally moved from one thing to another, but they still took 3 hours or so. So did they pack more stuff in? And I guess at these conventions, they also had some things going on during the day that were not part of any kind of a broadcast in the past. But for the evening activities, they had a chance. They could probably pack more stuff in. Maybe they did. The speeches were not interrupted by long applause lines. They were not interrupted by applause at the programmed applause lines. All the speeches have applause lines. And sometimes an applause lasts for a long, long time. And, of course, none of that was happening. But, of course, that left a feeling of less excitement and left less emotional impact. Sometimes you could get actually more because things weren't being interrupted, and sometimes the feeling was less. And again, I don't, this stuff doesn't really get me right there very much, and not never. Sometimes, not never, but not often, and definitely not this time. So, yeah, I thought that the parking lot thing at the end, I wasn't paying careful attention to that. I think I caught that on the replay. I thought that was kind of cool. What are the Republicans going to do? As far as I know, they're also planning everything pretty much virtual, but I don't know if Trump is going to be able to tolerate. But he's going to be at the White House at what seems to be the way things have resolved, out on the lawn, weather permitting, and there'll be people there. You will hear cheering. You will hear live cheering from the Republicans. Not just a wall of Zoom at the tail end of the major talks from the Democrats. All right. Now we'll see what we get with the convention on the Republicans this week, and a full report on the Triangle Talk Show next Sunday. Probably not. We might mention it. I drove out to Pittsburgh. Was it yesterday? Yesterday or Friday? I wanted to see the Confederate flag and the Black Lives Matter billboard that was next to it. There we go. I do have the photo. I wanted to see the billboard and the flag. I saw in a News and Observer story that the billboard is going to be coming down. The group that put it up there, Kerwin Pittman's group, had a contract for a full year, and I think that's a lot of money. I think that's pretty expensive to have a billboard up for a full year. It is with Lamar Advertising, and it was supposed to be up for a full year, but the guy that owns the property and has the contract with the sign company, Lamar Advertising, is the same guy that owns the Confederate flag and the property that the billboard is on. And he had a contract with the billboard company that expired the end of August, September 1st. So he ended his lease with the billboard owner after almost 16 years, and the lease will expire August 31st, foregoing a lot of money all the income that billboard would have been giving him. And I think that I don't have the note here, but I think it was a couple $1,000s a month. He's letting that go because he doesn't want the Black Lives Matter billboard up for that long. The quote that is in the News and Observer is, this is a guy named Sam White. I told them the 31st of August, that sign better be gone because September 1st, if that sign's not down, they're going to hear my chainsaw running. That's his comment to the News and Observer. So I went out to see it. And let me get ready to put that on here. What surprised me was that the Confederate flag was smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be one of those giant, immense flags that you see at like Camper World and some car dealers and stuff. For those of you looking at the picture, you can tell it's not that small. The Black Lives are not that big. The Black Lives Matter billboard is far more prominent on the screen than the flag is. It's along kind of a seedy stretch of Business 64, about maybe less than a mile, I think, before you get into downtown Pittsburgh. That part of 64 doesn't get the kind of traffic it did years ago. They built a bypass around Pittsburgh. If you don't drive out US 64 very much, heading west toward Ashboro, I see that a lot because we go down to Charlotte to visit in-laws. My in-laws, Cindy's parents, not her in-laws. So we get through there a lot, and we used to drive right through Pittsburgh. You go around, got a traffic circle around the courthouse downtown. But once they built the bypass is interstate quality. You're taking a few more miles, but the speed limit bumps up 55 to 65, and it's faster. So we don't see this very much anymore. So the location of this is inside where the bypass goes around on what I'm going to call, if I call it seedy, it's just, it's not the beautiful downtown Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has got some nice stuff going on as a antiquing destination, things like that. So it's just, kind of on a dusty part of US 64. Again, a little bit closer shot. The billboard is far more prominent than the flag, and it kind of waited until the wind was blowing the flag out. When I first got there, it was just kind of draping down. And the building behind it is the business that, what was his name? Sam White owns, and the property with the rather overgrown property lawn that the billboard is on. And then there's the building that is behind it, and I guess it's still open. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. There's a sign there that says, what does that sign say? No trespassing. Well, there's a vine growing up through the door and through the windows. That's looking pretty closed to me. Some of those, vines and scruff growing on the garage doors. So I'm thinking that's closed. There is a sign that he put up on it though, that the group that Kerwin Pittman runs, RREPS, recidivism. Okay, I don't know what all the initials are for, but it's basically a group that helps people that have been in and out of jail, or maybe keeping them out of jail. And Kerwin founded that some time ago. This sign here says RREPS equals Kerwin Pittman, convicted of murder and felon. Did Jamal Jeffrey's life matter? So that's, what was his name? Sam White. Go back and check that. That's his attempt to disparage the reputation. Yeah, Sam White. of Kerwin Pittman. Kerwin doesn't deny what went on. He was part of a gang, part of a group that was involved in a murder back in 2006. He went to jail, and he has rehabilitated himself and has dedicated his life to keeping other people out or helping people get out and doing a lot of good community service work as well as the protesting. So, he doesn't hide that fact. We are aware of it. Sam thinks that it will disparage his reputation. It will not. Oh, look, I'm done. I'm out of things to talk about from the rundown on the show. So, yes, I can almost fill an hour solo, and the only reason why I don't have more to put in here, because I was going to talk about some of the Republicans that have recently fallen from grace, arrested, charged, convicted, sentenced. Things are looking bad for some local and national Republicans. But I didn't take the time to put those stories together, so I won't be talking about that. I'm really just vamping here so that I can make it another minute and a half, checking my clock here. Minute and a half to make it till 5 o'clock. Because for some reason it seems important that I make it to 5 o'clock before I end the show. I have nothing left. I'm out of gas. We're done. But the post show or the end of show stuff should carry me through. This has been episode 108. It looks like Brendan and Jen and Sarah will not be busting in. Right in front of me that's Zoom. They could show up there at any moment. The audio is up. They could bust in at any moment and carry me for another hour, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Episode 108. It's not a chat room. It's a monologue. August 23rd, 2020. 15 seconds to go until 5 o'clock. Big effing podcast. Some other podcaster out there must have thought to use that phrase. I'm surprised that the guys who do the Crooked Media guys who do Pod Save America, Pod Save the World, Pod Save everything else, that they didn't come up with that. They did come up with a couple of episodes ago, person, man, woman, computer, podcast from Trump's mental acuity test, which we've all memorized that, right? Was it that person, man, woman? I think it was computer TV. I think that was what he had. So they made it person, man, woman, computer podcast. But big effing podcast. I mean, that was a tee shot. They lined that one right up. Here, podcasters have a show title. I am Gary Pierce. That is the end of the show. Getting ready to push the off button on. Well, actually, I'm not gonna push the off button on the stream because that clips off the end of the stream. So I've got something else that I can do. After I say, this has been the Triangle Talk Show. Over and out.